The Bible half hour. Everybody knows the aim. It's all about Jesus, who reveals the Father, who shares the Spirit. It's all about church. We learn his ways and we live them out together. Welcome on board, everybody. This morning, may we think, speak and feel. In the name of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. May it be just this day. We're only designed to get through one day at a time, according to the Lord's Prayer. Welcome in. If you're tuning in later, shout out to you. Interesting conversation late last night in church. One of our viewers, Dave, struck by how many churches are named after Old Testament places. Churches in the UK, churches in Wales. And I've been struck as I've been looking at the claims of Jesus and his divinity in the New Testament, how none of them are understandable without the Old Testament, because he refers back to them. That was me. I did that. That's me. That name, that was me. I was there. I met him. I'm older than him. That old figure. And on it goes. And the fact that he claimed divinity through the Jewish scriptures is the very reason people wanted him killed for blasphemy. Doesn't work if there's no Trinity in the Old Testament and us to have to learn about the living God in the scriptures. It's the same God. Let's go, everybody, with that in mind. It's Genesis 30, verse 7. And I tell you for nothing that the next few chapters, it can get pretty dark in the life of these saints. And saints, I believe they are, many of them. Rachel's servant, Bilhah, conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, I have had a great struggle with my sister and I have won. So she named him Naphtali. Anyone ever had struggles with sisters? Yeah, just slightly lowered the camera. I think it's darker today than normal. Some days it's dark, some days it's not. What is up, Angela? What is up, Ellen? And what is up, Ricky B? When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Was it Zilpah in the Handmaid's Tale? I don't know. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, what good fortune! So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, how happy I am! The women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. I know someone called Asher. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. Oh, I read this yesterday. We done this one. Please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too? Very well, Rachel said, he can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. What is up, Cara? Big K. Special K. Non-berry version. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. Then Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. And guess what that means? You got it. Honor. Sometime later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Now remember Dinah, because there's sadness on the horizon. And God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you. But Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. He added, name your wages and I will pay you. Jacob said to him, I know how I have worked for you, you know, and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you whenever I have been. But now, when may I do something for my own household? What shall I give you, he asked. Don't give me anything, Jacob replied. But if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks a day and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-coloured lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. I wonder what you think of Laban. I think there'll be split opinions on Laban. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future whenever you check on the wages you have paid me. Any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-coloured, will be considered stolen. Agreed, said Laban. So it be as you have said. That same day he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark-coloured lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend to the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh-cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood on the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-coloured animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there. So the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Jacob. Classic Jacob. In this way, the man grew exceedingly prosperous. He came to own large flocks, and female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Jacob, 31, chapter, Genesis 1:31. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our father owned and has gained all this wealth from what belonged to our father." And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude towards him was not what it had been. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." So Jacob sent word to Rachel and Leah to come out to the fields where his flocks were. He said to them, "I see that your father's attitude towards me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all of my strength, yet the father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. If he said, 'The speckled ones will be your wages,' then all the flocks gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, 'The streaked ones will be your wages,' then all the flocks bore streaked young. So God has taken away your father's livestock and has given them to me. In the breeding season, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. The angel of God said to me in a dream, 'Jacob.' I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted, for I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land.'" Well, dreams, they're going to feature a lot in the Bible. Sometimes you can read into them. I guess sometimes you can underread into them. Then Rachel and Leah replied, "Do we still have any share in the inheritance of our father's estate? Does he not regard us now as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us. Surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us and our children. So do whatever God has told you." Then Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods that he had accumulated in Padam Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. What's this little blue thing then? That is northwest Mesopotamia. On the third day, when Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him he was running away. So he fled with all that he had, crossed the river Euphrates, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. Household gods. What is this family, other than a very mixed bunch? Household gods are going to feature a few times in the Bible. Bear that in mind. Here's a wildly, inappropriately, out of contextually misapplication. Do we have household gods? Can our television and iPad be a household god? If this generation of Christians, I say Christian, that word wasn't used till the book of Acts, but they're looking forward to the messianic appearance of the seed to rescue them. That's their whole faith, as we've been seeing, that's been held down, passed down through generations. If they were to appear to us now and walk into our houses, what would they think of us? I don't know. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Taking his relatives with him, he pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You've deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so that I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and harps?" Maybe because you haven't got a great track record of letting me go with joy and singing and tambourines with harps. For those driving, I added that last bit. That wasn't in the text. 28. You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you. But last night the God of your father said to me, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household. But why did you steal my gods?" So you got the Lord, he's conveying his messages here through his word, which primarily has not been a voice from heaven. It's been through the physical appearance of this word being, also called God, who's receiving worship on the ground, God on the ground. He is also speaking a lot to people through dreams. So if we are these days, when we hear of people being converted to Christianity through dreams, where there's no access to anything else like Bibles or churches or Christians, I don't think it is behoving unto us to immediately write that off. Obviously, sometimes it's just someone who's eaten too much cheese or taken drugs, whatever. But often you can eliminate those factors and you have legitimate stories worth considering, that God is on the move in some countries through dreams. Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here." With me, and if so, take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two female servants. But he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent but found nothing. Rachel said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence, but I'm having my period." So he searched but could not find the household gods. Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. "What is my crime?" he asked Laban. "How have I wronged you that you hunt me down? Now that you have searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the two of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime, and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you." Laban answered Jacob, "The women are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Yet what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, "Gather some stones." So they took stones and piled them in a heap. and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jigar Shahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. And we're grateful he did, because we couldn't pronounce Laban's version. Witness heap. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it's called Gilead. Gilead. It was also called Mizpah, because he said, may the Lord keep watch between you and me, when we are far away from each other. If you ill-treat my daughters, or if you take any wives beside my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me. Laban also said to Jacob, here is this heap. Here is the pillar I have set up between you and me. Incidentally, swearing, may the Lord, this oath, invoking the Lord's name. When you make a promise, you bring the Lord into it. It sort of adds weight. And you see this in Deuteronomy, 9, 13, 14, 23, 24. Around those chapters. And it is that and other instances that the Lord draws from in the Sermon on the Mount, when he then tells people not to make oaths, but just let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. And that, by the way, is coming up Sunday morning. I just somehow have to think about it. Laban also said to Jacob, here is this heap, set at this pillar between you and me. This heap is a witness, this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past his heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. After they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them, and he returned home. What an involved family drama. But it does not exist for itself, and the implications are going to be wild. Genesis 32, Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, this is the camp of God. So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, this is what you are to say. By the way, I'm not a fan of Jacob at this point. I'm just saying. Well, I am, but I'm not. I don't think that Jacob is fully embracing this faith of ours in his heart yet. I think he's still full of underhandedness. Mind you, if we were only ever fans of people that weren't underhanded, who are we going to be a fan of? Certainly not ourselves. He instructed them, this is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have now been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys and sheep and goats and male and female goats. Now I am sending this message to my lord that I may find favor in your eyes. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, we went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him in two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you have said to me, go back to your country and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness that you have shown your servant. I mean, at least he prays a lot. Most of us try and sort our problems out without even praying. Even though he's not always great, he is a praying guy. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. He spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother: 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to his servants, go ahead of me and keep some space between the herds. He instructed the one in the lead, when my brother Esau meets you and asks, who do you belong to, and where are you going, and who owns all these animals in front of you, then you are to say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us. Is he fawning? I think he's fawning. He also instructed the second, the third, and all the followers, and all the others who followed the herds, you are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, your servant Jacob is coming behind us. For he thought, I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me. So Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. Don't forget, anybody during these chats with any thoughts or questions, put them in. If this was a book club, which it sort of is, then I would say, what do you think of Jacob at this point? And you'd say something like this: I'm just glad, Owen, that church has had the same problems from the very beginning, and it's really helped me with my local church, because I keep falling into this trap of thinking I'm only going to stick with the church and fully commit when they stop being annoying. Owen, I had such a strange view of church. And then what you would do is turn to Romans and Corinthians and Galatians and 2 Corinthians, and you'd be like, wow, in fact, the church in the New Testament is as nutty as this lot. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, let me go, for it is daybreak. Man, who is this man that comes alongside when we're really at our lowest and run down? Financial worries, spiritual worries, relationship worries, social worries, cultural worries, marital worries, sheep worries. Who is this man? But Jacob replied, I will not let you go until you bless me. The man asked him, what is your name? Jacob, he answered. Then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. Probably means he struggles with God. These footnotes aren't very confident, are they? They're very sheepish. Because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. That's a terrible English sentence. Rendition. Jacob said, please tell me your name. But he replied, why do you ask my name? Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called this place Peniel, saying, it is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. That's really strange, because elsewhere there's another Yahweh who says no one has ever seen his face. So we've almost got 2 Yahwehs here again in the Old Testament. Who is this one on the ground that we can wrestle with? His ways and his wonders. He comes alongside us when we're weak, and he gives us a new name and a new start. Sounds like someone I know. The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. Why do you ask my name? There's a few times in the scriptures, and we'll end with this, where, although that was a rubbish English translation, what is this? 32, isn't it? Hang on. In fact, all of that magic was lost in that English translation. Please tell me your name. Why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him. What is your name, Jacob? You have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. That's a bit better. Anyway, there's a few times... what was I going to say? Oh yeah, people ask the Son of God his name, and he says things like, it's too wonderful for you to handle right now. Let's just park that one. And so off we go in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, serving the one who comes alongside the weak, who has a lot of patience with church, and who gives us a new name. And his name is too wonderful. So let's try and tap into him slightly. We're only going to scratch the surface this day. Have a lovely day. Lots on at church today. Join us at Big Fish if you're of that age. Well, my class is at 7 p.m. We're going to look at the end times in a very overviewy type way. See you later.